Welcome to Wake Up and Live with Christopher Flagg. This is a daily podcast to encourage and inspire godly living. Let's join in and listen to today's message.
Good morning, good day, or good evening, whatever time it is that you're tuned in to listen today. Thank you so much for tuning in. You know, I want us to talk about something that really needs to get inside our spirit. You know, you remember in 1977, the power ballad, "We Are the Champions." I mean, it was the traditional encore at the end of performances by the British band Queen. And while it never hit number one on the charts, a team of scientific researchers dubbed it as the catchiest song in the history of pop music. Maybe it's the unique combination of jazz chords, major and minor 6th, 7th, 11th, and 12th harmonies. Or perhaps it was the male high C and falsetto belted out by the lead singer, Freddie Mercury. Regardless, once it gets in your head, it's tough to get out. In nearly 3 decades after the original recording, it was voted the world's favorite song in the worldwide music poll. I mean, if Romans 8 were an album, More Than Conquerors would be the title track. The whole thing is a power ballad. I mean, the melody starts with no condemnation and ends with nothing can separate us from the love of Christ. The bass line is all things work together for good. But the high falsetto is more than conquerors. We are the champions, my friend, and we'll keep on fighting to the end. You know, Freddie Mercury is no theologian, but this song has a pretty good paraphrase of Romans 8. Well, except for the part about no time for losers. Jesus would have been awfully lonely if he hadn't done that, and so would we. So this is our soundtrack. It may not feel like that way on a bad day, but even if you failed 1,000 times, you're still more than a conqueror. And to think of yourself as anything less than who you are in Christ is false humility. You know, in my experience, it takes time to take on a new identity. Like a new pair of shoes, you've got to break it in. You know, when I first started pastoring, I didn't feel like a pastor, and I didn't look like one either. I mean, it took a few years to take on the mantle. You know, so sometimes the same is true with this identifier. But even if you're losing more battles than you're winning, you're still more than a conqueror. Why? Because the battle isn't yours to win or lose. The battle belongs to the Lord, and Christ has already conquered. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You know, on October 7th, 1916, Georgia Tech defeated Cumberland College by a setting score of 222-0. Yep, you heard right, 222-0. It still ranks as the most lopsided victory in college football history. Much like in today's ranking system, margin of victory mattered back then too. So Coach John Heisman, after whom the Heisman Trophy was named, he ran up the score. I mean, hey, it could have been worse. Cumberland College did block one extra point using the human pyramid. And according to the final box score, Cumberland gained, or should I say, lost a negative 28 yards. I mean, that's a convincing victory. You might even call it a Hupernikeo. You say what? Yeah, Hupernikeo. I mean, that 3-word phrase, more than conquerors, comes from that one Greek word. It's a rare compound that means to be hyper-conqueror, over-conqueror, or conqueror with success to spare. It's more than a W. It's a defining W that demoralizes your opponent. That's where the word Nike comes from. In Greek mythology, she was the goddess of victory, both in battle and in sport. Nike personified it and epitomized the victory, so the Apostle Paul, he redeemed that word, and uses it to describe us. I still remember asking my parents for my first pair of Nike shoes. I pronounced it with 1 syllable, not 2, and I made it a plural, Nikes. But even in the 2nd grade, it was a status symbol. Next to Coca-Cola, the Nike swoosh may be the most recognizable logo on the planet. You know, Romans 8:37 is our swoosh. When I introduce myself to people, I don't say, "Hi, I'm Hyper Conqueror." You know, I typically use my name, Chris. but that's my birthright as a child of God. And when we look in the mirror, that's who we should see. Sure, I see my imperfections too, but the truest reflection is the image of God. And in Christ, I'm more than a conqueror. If you had to describe yourself in one word, what would it be? How would you answer that question? By the way, if you want to get to know someone really well, really fast, that's a pretty good question. You know, the truth is you can't be reduced to a one-word descriptor, not even a hyphenated word. But biblically speaking, I can think of no better answer than hypernikao. It comes as close as any word. That's who you are in Christ. It's your truest identity, your surest destiny. God is preparing good works in advance. God is ordering your footsteps. God is working all things together for good. All those promises translate into one conqueror, more than a conqueror. When Jesus died on the cross, the enemy thought it was game over, but that wasn't the final buzzer. The game went into overtime, and when Jesus walked out of the tomb 3 days later, the final score was posted. The victory was signed, sealed, and delivered 2,000 years ago. Now we just need to live like we know that. I could tell you thousands of stories of setbacks experienced by God-fearing, Bible-believing, Christ-loving people. While the circumstances may differ, the storyline's the same. Through Christ, we overcome. I mean, it's no consequence that the word testimony begins with test. Pass the test, get a testimony. I mean, there is no addiction so strong that God's power cannot deliver. I mean, there's no failure so final that God's grace cannot forgive. There's no wound so deep that God's love cannot heal. No matter how bad it is, His grace is sufficient. And no matter how good it is, the best is yet to come. You know, I heard this story about a chaplain in the NFL. I mean, he wasn't on the 53-man roster or a part of the coaching staff. And like most chaplains, he raises his financial support to do what he does. But the head coach so valued the chaplain's investment that he gave him a Super Bowl ring. I mean, if you're in Christ, you get a ring. Even if you don't play a single down, you get a ring. Even if you had a bad day, you get a ring. Even if you're the ball boy, you get a ring. Why? Because you are in Christ, which means you're on the team. It's that simple. Never have the odds been more stacked against someone than that day where Christ was betrayed, arrested, flogged, and crucified. But Jesus overcame the odds, and that makes us overcomers, and He gives us a ring. It says, "On that day, declares the Lord Almighty, I will take you, my servant Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, declares the Lord, and I will make you like my signet ring, for I have chosen you." You know, a signet ring was the king's official seal, symbolizing his royal authority. Once invoked, it could not be revoked. That's you. You are God's signet ring. You've already been sized, and it's not just a ring size, a hat size too. You get to wear the ring now, plus there's a crown in heaven with your name on it. 7 times the book of Revelation refrains, "To him who have overcome." It's the same words that used in Romans 8, hypernikao, and it's a promise attached to all 7. They included the right to eat from the tree of life, a white stone with a new name on it, and the right to sit at the Father's throne. These 7 refrains raise the question, how do we overcome? The answer is simple. In Christ, it's the only way, the truth, and the life. You are more than a conqueror. And to think of yourself as anything less is false humility. And false humility is worse than pride. Pride is believing something about yourself that isn't true. False humility is not believing something about yourself that is true. Here's the truth. You are more than a conqueror. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. What if you stop thinking of yourself as anything less than who you are in Christ? More than a conqueror. So today, as you walk out from the house, as you go to work, or as whatever you're doing today, look at yourself in a mirror or look at yourself and just say, I am more than a conqueror. That no matter what you face today, no matter what you go through, in Christ, you are more than a conqueror. You will be one that overcomes. You will be one that wins in the end. You will get the ring, and you will get the signet, and you will get the crown of glory, because you are an overcomer in Christ. God bless you today. Thank you for joining in with listening. Wake up and live empowered, blessed, and loved today, knowing that one thing for sure, no matter nothing else you may know today about what's going to happen, know this: you're more than a conqueror. God bless. See you again.
Thank you for tuning in today for Wake Up and Live. Join us each day for a new inspiring message. Also check out our Saturday morning's Word and Worship for 30 minutes of getting refueled, plus our Sunday sermon series on the seasons of life.